Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode. This time's a good one. We got the original crew back together, gang, and we are going to be doing Justified City Primeval. The return of our friend Raylan. It's been so long since we've actually seen him, and it's going to be very interesting to see, has he matured? Has he calmed down? Has he, not shot everybody who tries to pull a gun on him? So it's going to be a lot of fun to see. And this one is based off of a book. And I'm going to ask you guys right out. Have either of you read the book that this was based off of?
I have.
I have not.
So while we're talking about this, Bobby, since you have read it, please tell us how close some of this was and everything.
The main story is pretty close. Basically what they did was they basically substituted Raylan in for the other character whose name I am totally blanking on.
It was Raymond.
Raymond, is that what?
Raymond Cruz.
Yes, thank
Raymond
you.
Cruz.
Raylan is basically substitute. So there's a lot of things that Raylan does that are just done that, because I know one of the criticisms has been Raylan doesn't seem as Raylan like. And it's because they're having him do what Cruz did.
Gotcha.
And Cruz was not so much a shoot him on sight kind of guy.
Right. He was more, trying to figure out what was going on and everything.
Mm-hmm. And really, the book, well, much like the show, it wasn't just he wasn't just the main character. The Carolyn, they were pretty equal,
Right. And
main characters.
And I feel like in the TV show, I think she got that also.
Yeah. She's very integral to the, sometimes sometimes in the book, it almost seems like it's more her story.
Gotcha.
Than the other characters. But,
right.
But most of Justified has been that from the beginning, because really Raylan was never a main character in any of the books.
Right.
Until the show started, then they wrote books. Raylan was always a secondary character that when he needed a marshal, there was Raylan.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And
but the book is good. It's earlier Leonard, so it's a little different. It's a little darker than some of his other stuff, but it's really good. Yeah.
Awesome. And this will be very interesting to do. And as we always like to say, we will be spoiling the hell out of this one, folks. So if you haven't watched the show yet, it's up on FX. It's also up on Hulu. That's where I got to see it. And it's a ton of fun just to see. And it's like being reintroduced to an old friend in some ways. And, Timothy Oliphant is just awesome. Anyway, so, and as Judy said, he's not bad to look at either. So it's also nice.
And it's only 8 episodes. So it's an easy binge.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, and it's some of the episodes are only like 42 minutes. They're not even full hours. So it's definitely easy to watch, and I definitely recommend it.
Which is funny because when FX was airing them, they were putting extra commercials in because the episodes would run like an hour and 15 minutes with commercials. Really? Oh, yeah. So here I was thinking, we're getting extra content. And I looked and it's like, no, we got extra commercials.
Thank God I pay for the commercial-free version of Hulu, because I would not be able to do that. But it's great to have you back, Mr. Bobby Nash. It is.
Oh, good to be here.
It's been quite a while, actually.
Yeah, well, last time we were doing Casablanca, I think was the last time I was here, right?
Oh, geez. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, it has been a bit. So
that was in the 40s.
Yeah, exactly.
and we have, and look how young we look compared.
I know. How was DragonCon for you? How did it go?
Oh, it was good, exhausting, but good. I had a great time. I moved some books, had some great panels. Awesome. Mike and I shared roommated again, and so hung out with Mike and Peter quite a bit, and Van Plexico and a bunch of other folks. And
awesome,
just a wonderful time. So exhausting, a lot of walking. It's as spread out as it's been. This year they added the third apparel mart to so I didn't actually go in there, but they had things in. I think it was, I don't know exactly what was it, but there was something in the third apparel mart that people were going to.
Oh wow! I think was it the gaming over there?
It may have moved over there. Yeah, they were still doing something in one, but because they had it blocked off in certain areas, but so they may have just moved all of that to 3.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but there were a couple times where there were long lines to get around that building as well. So
No, that totally makes sense. It's interesting too because, you know, going to DragonCon is like a big family, your geek family reunion, as we like to say. And so for you guys, you guys work the show also, and you have tables set up, so you guys are selling and such. So it's an interesting more experience than I've ever done, because I've been a guest and I've been a panelist and a fan just going around. So
I think the biggest part is I don't get to see everything.
Right.
We're kind of, because Mike and I both have tables in the American Smart Building 2 on the 4th floor in the comic and pop art track. When we do leave during the day, it's usually to go to a panel, which in a couple of my cases was 6 blocks away.
Oh, I'm sure if you had to go down to
I had to go to the Cortland Grand, that used to be the Sheraton, a couple times.
Formerly known as the Sheraton.
Yes, that is a hike. But during the day, we're pretty much in there, except for panels from like 9:30 in the morning till about 7:30 at night. So we don't get to see certain things. Like I only saw 2 of the celebrity guests, and because I never made it to the Walk of Fame. I saw 2 celebrity guests, and that was because I saw them elsewhere. Like the guy from that was Gary on Legends of Tomorrow came through the comic track.
Okay, gotcha.
So I saw him, and then I talked to Adam Savage when we passed each other going into and out of a panel.
Hey, Adam. Hey, Bob. Yeah.
That was about it. Yeah. So I didn't see any of the other actors. I didn't really get to see any of the musicians or any of that stuff. But it was fun. We had a good time. It's, like I said, exhausting.
No, of course.
Come out of it lucky. A lot of people came back suffering from either concrete or COVID, and thankfully,
I was about to
knock a bunch of wood, I didn't have either.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
I know probably close to over 36 people who got COVID.
Well, there were people we were around all weekend that got it, and
Yeah.
I was surprised, but I dodged that bullet.
Thank goodness for both of you guys. I'm really glad, because I was worried about that for you.
Now we also took precautions. Like we didn't go out as much at night. Like we used to go hang out in the Weston bar with the writers until 2-3 in the morning, and I didn't do that quite as much.
Right, and we used to hang out at the Marriott taking pictures and looking at the costumes and everything like that too.
Yeah, so I didn't do as much of that as we used to.
I think you're showing your age a little bit there.
That's part of it too. Yeah, and then, but also, but instead of not seeing them in person, we do get to see a lot of photos.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, I didn't see a lot of that stuff, and there's a lot of friends that I don't get to see just because there's a lot of people you only see if you bump into them. And if we're doing stuff in different hotels or on different ends of the city, the casual bumping into each other doesn't happen quite as much.
No, totally understand that completely.
And then there's that handful of people you run into multiple times a day.
Exactly.
It's weird how that works. Yeah.
No, totally understand that. Well, it's great to have you on, sir. And
thank you. It's good to be back.
We'll catch up throughout the show and everything. So, Mr. Mike, you ready to take away?
Absolutely. So yeah, let's all get all justified in this house. Justified City Primeval. As you guys talked about, based on a Elmore Leonard novel, not to be confused with an actual novel that he wrote in 2018 called Raylan Goes to Detroit, although it could have been based on the title, but it's not. It's based on a book that features Raymond Cruz in the role that Raylan would be written in this. Raymond Cruz, interestingly enough, in this is played by Paul Calderon, who also played Detective Raymond Cruz in the movie Out of Sight. So I don't know if this means that officially they're connected, but certainly if you're looking for a Elmore Leonard verse.
Yeah, they've done that a couple times. Michael Keaton played the same character in Jackie Brown and Out of Sight. I forget that character's name. But it was the same. He played the same character.
Wasn't he a police officer, I think, or
I think he
or
worked for the
detective?
FBI.
Yeah.
I think he worked for the FBI. Yeah.
uh,
But
and
yes.
Luis Guzman is featured in the last episode, last 15 minutes of this, and he's also in Out of Sight, but he plays a completely different character.
Right.
So it's not always just about the actors, but I think it's just Paul Calderon is such a great actor anyway.
Love him
He's
on
only
Bosch.
featured in one scene in this, really, when he's talking to Raylan, and that's one of the highlights, I think.
He's fantastic on Bosch.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's fantastic in anything.
Well, sure. Yeah.
But so yes, Justified City Primeval, Raylan is back, not in Harlan County. And so there are very few, if any, of the usual suspects hanging around. Justified, when the series ended, I believe, I believe it was pretty much a consensus that the finale was satisfying. Wrapped everything up. How excited or how much did you want any sort of follow-up to Justified, Bobby?
You know what? I love this character, so I was thrilled to see him again. I don't think revisiting him does not negate that ending. I've seen a lot of people complain it's like, why they've undone this perfect ending, and that ending is still there. I like the idea of revisiting this character, especially we're what 10 years down the road for him.
Yeah, it takes place about 10 years later.
Yeah, because Willow's a teenager and she was like 4 or 5 when we in the final
she's
episode.
supposed to be like 15 here, I think, or something.
Yeah, so we're looking at about so it's cool to see how Raylan has changed. Because his circumstances are changed. For the last 10 years he's been back in Miami. He has a daughter. He has, I'm assuming he obviously didn't ever married or but he seems to be, going on with his life. If you watching the show, he also seems to have calmed down his shoot first and let God sort it out attitude. Because really he only shoots twice in the series, in the first episode and the last episode. Which I know is another thing a lot of people was like, wait a minute. but that anger in that character is still there. I mean, Raylan still comes off as a guy who could bubble up and bubble, his anger could boil over, as we see when Clement messes with his daughter.
Exactly, that's where I was about to go. When he, the look on his face when he saw Clement in the hotel with his daughter, and I fully expected him to pull the gun and like shove it down his throat or something, when he was beating the crap out of him.
Yeah, and so that was always one of the things about that, that's something the original series like touched on in the very first episode, was like Raylan doesn't think of himself as an angry guy, but when Hannah's like, you hide it well, but you're like the angriest man I've ever met, and I think that's still a very much part of Raylan. I don't think he hasn't like completely calmed down. I mean, he pulls out the shotgun and shoots that car at the beginning of the episode when the guys are trying to carjack him. So I think, had it been at a point where he needed to shoot somebody, he might have. He's just trying not to, I think. Which is something he did in the original series too. There's a bit where he's like, I'm trying not to shoot people. That didn't last long. But no, Timothy is fantastic. So, having him anchor the show, I was riveted. He is fantastic, and he plays off of the other characters well. There's multiple characters in here that he has a good chemistry with. So
absolutely. Yeah, I'm going to get to those in a minute. Mike, were you craving more Raylan?
I think I was, actually. It's like I said earlier in the show, it was like seeing an old friend you haven't seen in like 10 years. And it was nice. And I was like wondering, has he matured? Has he calmed down? And no, not really. He's still the Raylan we knew, but he also is trying to be a parent, and he's trying to actually, be a good force for his daughter. And, he didn't want to go to Detroit. He didn't, it wasn't his choice to go there. It was circumstance that, the carjacker just happened to have a record and a warrant out for him in, up in Detroit. So, he was taking his daughter to camp because she broke some kid's nose.
The apple didn't fall far, did it?
No, it didn't at all. And that's, and that was a neat place to see. And it was awesome that his daughter was actually played by his real life daughter, which was, pretty cool to see. And I like, it just spun out of control. If when he was on, when he was up on the stand, it was typical Raylan, when he was being, cross-examined by the defense attorney, and she was like, "You threatened to put my client in the trunk." Well, and he says, "Is it because he was a black man? I would have put a white man back there too."
And we've seen him.
Yes, he's done that. We've seen it on Justified. And so it's not beyond him, and he didn't think anything wrong of it. And leaving them out in the car while they ate lunch, but he said, "I left a window open, cracked for them." It's like, and it was just, and the judge, which was awesome, being played by Keith David, was awesome.
So good.
He was just awesome, and he played really, really well off of Timothy, and so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I love the fact that the first series was him going back to this place where everybody knew him, where he was still kind of the outsider because he was coming back, but he knew everything about Harlan. There wasn't a lot surprising. Whereas this is the opposite. He is in the place where he doesn't know. No one knows him. He doesn't know anybody. He doesn't know any place. And so he was very much the fish out of water. And I think that was an interesting dynamic to play.
Yeah, I think it was in a lot of ways smart for them to continue with Raylan as a character, as opposed to rebooting or continuing on with Justified as a series in Harlan County, because I think that had come to a satisfying conclusion. That story of Raylan and Harlan returning to Harlan had come to a satisfying conclusion. So with the next arc of Raylan, and Justified, I think, very early on, I think when they originally set it up, when it was known as just Lawman, it was supposed to be the Raylan Givens show, but after the pilot, and they knew that they had captured magic, and it became the Raylan Givens Boy Crowder show. Right,
because Boyd was supposed to die in the pilot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but because they had such magic there, they realized what they had, and it became the show of both of them. So Timothy and Walton Goggins did amazing work on that throughout that series, but their story was told. Their story was finished, or so we thought. But we'll get to that in a minute. In telling this tale of just Raylan, as you point out, Bobby, he is a fish out of water. He's a deputy out of water, out of Harlan, out of Miami, trying to figure things out. He's not unfamiliar with Detroit. We find out because in during the arc of Justified, I mean, he had run into the Detroit mob, right? So,
yep.
And he had he helped take a lot of those members down. So, but that was a decade ago. So, nobody there knows him. Nobody there cares about him. It's a different beast.
Yeah, he doesn't have that thing where it's like, when he shows up, where it's like when he shows up to meet Mags Bennett the first time. She knew exactly who he was. She had his number from the get-go.
Everybody in Harlan County knows him, and we imagine everybody in Miami knows him as well. When you see that hat, you're like, oh crap, right? Like this is the guy that's coming. And
knew his family too. I think that with Harlan,
sure,
especially early seasons. The first half of that first season is have you seen your daddy yet? What's your daddy? That was such a big part of it too, and he doesn't have any of that here.
No, in fact, he's the subject of ridicule because he wears the hat. Like they don't know Raylan like we know it. And he does come across as a little different for us because he's not as quick to the trigger. And in fact, because nearly everybody in Detroit, at least on the law side, is corrupt in some ways, to some degree. I mean, he comes across as like the straight and narrow. He comes across as the voice of reason, which is not a Raylan that we're used to seeing. Not that he's unreasonable usually. It's just that he's not usually the one that has to say, hey, back off, you've gone too far.
But it's interesting too, because you also got the kind of, with him, the fish out of water type character also. Not that he was a stranger to the crime. He was up there right in front. He wasn't letting anyone else, pave the way. He was, when that poor girl, when they found the poor girl in the park in the first episode, he was right there. He was, I'll be there, type thing. And it was just interesting. And, he was up there working with everyone, but it was also finding out that he could not trust anybody on the police department.
No. As much as he'd like to, everybody there was corrupt to some degree.
There were some nice bits of misdirection in the cops too.
Oh yes,
because there was one we did trust who turned out not to be trustworthy, and one we didn't trust who turned out to be fairly trustworthy. Those were nice little touches of twists. And
because they had you guessing the whole time who was the leak in the police department, who was basically trying to leak everything out. And and that was the cool thing about it. You thought, who's leaking to Clement, who's leaking to Sweetie, type thing. And
we still don't know. I mean, I find it hard to believe that Maureen tipped Clement off. Like, we don't know if that even was a thing. I mean, Clement might have just been lucky.
As Raylan said, that must be the most luckiest I've ever met in my life.
And he is played off that way. I mean, let's talk about the big bad in here, which is Clement Mansell, a ruthless criminal. And my understanding is he's played this way in the book as well. Only in the book, there's even it's further deepened because he used to be a former cop. Here, he's just a wild man. Here, he's just this is a kind of criminal that Raylan didn't face in Harlan. This is the Joker, really. He's random, he's chaotic, he's semi-smart, he's very lucky.
Very, very
and he's terrifying. He's absolutely terrifying. And I found his character, I thought it was interesting that I thought, first of all, Boyd Holbrook did a great job. Very confusing to me, first of all, to try to talk about him without mentioning Boyd Crowder, since his name is Boyd Holbrook. But Clement Mansell is pretty much a serial killer with I don't know, like some sort of I mean, he just is a wild man. I mean, the fact that he kills the judge, it just comes out of nowhere. Right. It's just road rage.
Yeah.
It's just a bad case of road rage. And they never really explain, like, that's never really something that the police ever find out. They think it's something that, that he had a beef against him or something. They're going for suspects. But the fact of the matter is that Clement just killed him because he ticked him off, because he cut him off. And that was about it.
Parking garage. Come on. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Atlanta traffic, I can see where it's justifiable. Like it does live up to its name as justified, this killing.
Wow.
But obviously killing the girl was way too far. And that really sets up Clement as this just guy, and he sees himself as a cowboy, an outlaw. I think quote unquote the Oklahoma wild man, like he wants to be like this sort of Billy the Kid kind of guy. He thinks of, he sees Raylan with the hat and he's like, hey, here's a old style cowboy that I can go up against. We're very much alike, you and I, that kind of thing. And
we could have been buddies.
And, meanwhile, on the other side of the table, Raylan's just like, you and me didn't dig coal together.
No.
You are nothing like me. Like, and if wishes were horses, like that's, there's that, he tries to make that connection, but it's not there. I give credit to Boyd Holbrook, because Clement Mansell could be one of those characters, much like the Joker, where it's one note and it just gets kind of tiring over time. Luckily, this is a short series, so it doesn't really play out that way. But he plays it so interesting and captivating and charming that he's fun to follow, no matter how terrifying and ruthless he is. Bobby, what are your thoughts on Clement Mansell?
Very unpredictable. Yeah, when you were
and you read the book.
Yeah, I know, right? Very unpredictable. Like, even those who are on his side, his partners are terrified of him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they don't know what's going to set him off.
Sandy. Ooh.
Yeah. Poor, and I feel sorry for Sandy. Sandy's not a good person, but
there's times you feel bad for Sandy.
Yeah,
there's times you don't.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I do kind of. I'm actually, it's one of those things.
Can I just pause here and just say, like, when Sandy doesn't dump the gun in the river and instead hides it, it is both the smartest and dumbest thing she could ever do. At the same time, it's smart and it's dumb at the same time, and it's Elmer Leonard and these showrunners and these justified people at their best, because that's just brilliant writing.
Yeah,
yeah.
So they're all afraid of, like, Sweetie's afraid of him, Carolyn's afraid of him, or at least wary of him, and then it takes the cops a bit to get on his trail. So once they do, they kind of like, oh yeah, this guy. But you're right. There are shades of the Joker there, like how he keeps telling like his origin story, and it kind of changes a little from
absolutely
this to that.
Absolutely.
So
how did he get his scars? That type of thing.
Yeah. Like I do love the story about he goes on about the tornado and smelling the tornado coming and all that. I thought that was just a wonderful little soliloquy he throws out there. But also very charming. I think, and that's what compares him to Boyd for me. Because see, Boyd was as unpredictable. Boyd tended to be a planner, but both of them are very charming people. And so you can see how people would, flock to them. He could have been a lot more successful criminal had he not like kept flying off the handle. Clement, like going back and stealing that guy's painting, or threatening people, throwing people, trying to throw people off rooftops and parking decks and all that stuff. And
hey, he jumped. He jumped.
But I mean, Sweetie had a plan. If they had kind of stuck to Sweetie's plan, they would have made a little money. It would have been all right. But I think having him be so unpredictable, he was able to do things that took the plot in different directions sometimes.
Yeah, well, I mean, it starts off. I mean, Sandy and he have a plan. to rob that guy,
The Armenian.
and right, the Armenian, which is dumb in its own right and has consequences. But in doing so, that's when he gets sidetracked and kills the judge and all that, and that's why we have a show.
Mhm.
So I mean, if he just didn't do that, he can't stick to the job at hand, right? He has to go over.
Well, and it's also fun to think about it, that the Armenians probably are in so much power in Detroit because 10 years earlier or 12 years earlier, Raylan took out Sammy Tonin's mob.
Probably.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping when Raylan was introduced to the head of the Armenians that there would be some sort of connection there. They never really did that, which is unfortunate. But because certainly they had done their research. They must have known, especially the Armenians must have known who Raylan was. But and oversight a little bit, I think, or it would have been nice to have that connection. But in any case, Mike, what did you think of Clement?
Clement was interesting. I like how you compared him to the Joker, because I could see that very much so, because he was charming. He was charming to the T. And he, was trying to, he was a wannabe musician, and he had his tape, and it's like I loved how Sweeney kept on saying to Sandy, it's like, have you ever heard his music? Have you ever actually listened to it?
It's his version of "Have you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?"
Exactly.
Can only steal cars with a tape deck.
Exactly. He'd had that in the very first
so he can
episode.
listen to himself and sing along.
And it was funny as hell because he had this beautiful convertible in the very first episode, and he ended up stealing this wreck of a car because it had a tape deck in it, so he could listen to his own music.
Because burning music to a CD is so hard.
Yeah, exactly. But it was interesting, and he was not above killing anybody, which you find in this. Anyone he runs across, if you run across him, I fully expected him to do worse to Raylan's daughter. Truthfully, I thought that was kind of like the cat and mouse thing, and he kept on playing it with Raylan throughout the story, sending him flowers and calling him chicken fat, and and through and it was just interesting to see. And and he kept on getting crazier and crazier as the story went on, and you never knew what he was going to do.
I loved how he tries to insult Raylan at one point, and he uses music. He's like, "Who are you supposed to be in that hat, Travis Tritt?"
And he John Wicks himself. He plays John Wick going up against the Armenians. Where he takes them out completely, and that's like his big sort of like, there's no turning back. I mean, and no matter what happens with Raylan and him in that kitchen, nobody's going to convict Raylan because of what he just did into that nursing home.
He wiped out the whole Armenian in front of a senior citizen home.
We're going to take over now. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
That's our there's this new guy running around. Sorry,
he's going the other direction.
Yeah,
exactly. But it was interesting too. It's just a lot of with the character and everything. It's like he had if something went different from in his mind, he went off. He lost it. Literally, look what happened with the Armenian. He was expecting the safe to be full of money and everything, and he was going to then just steal it from, the Armenian. And instead, it was guns and such. He's like, I don't need this. This is not what I need. And oh God, when he crushed the guy's leg in that steel, door, and it was just like, Judy was like, is he going to put his head in under there? It's like, oh no, something worse.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, it surprises me he didn't do worse. Like, I'm surprised after doing that, he let that guy live.
Right.
Or at least for a while. And then
for a while,
like Sandy gets out of it alive. The guy he took the painting from gets out of it alive. I would have figured that guy would. I figured that guy was
I'm going to the Bahamas.
Yeah.
After that. And
So-
it was like I fully expected the final scene to be him meeting Sandy on the beach or something. You know? And it's like, love is a true, something.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those things. I'm like, yeah, Sandy, you're just not learning. It's like trade one. You're just gone up at a criminal. That's about it.
She had a type.
She did have
She had a type. Yeah. All right. So one thing I love about Justified, I mean, as cool as Timothy Oliphant and Walter Goggins were, but everybody, casting wise, character wise, the show was just rich with character moments all the time, like every season, right? No matter what you think of like the best season or the worst season, I think, that stemmed from Elmore Leonard's writing initially, but also have to give credit to the writers and the showrunners of the original series. Now, Dave Andron and Michael Denner do a great job here in that, keeping that tradition going, because even though we're just meeting these people for the first time and it's a short series, we don't have a lot of time to get to know these people. I think some of these characters are really memorable and really deep and have some great moments. And we've already mentioned Clement, Mansell, but let's talk about some of the other characters. Bobby, was there anybody in particular that was one of your favorites?
I kind of like and I'm totally blanking on his name, so forgive me for that. But the cop that says, "I'm going to show you how we do shit in Detroit." I forget the cop's name, but I thought he was almost like what we expected Raylan to be.
Gotcha.
He was almost like young Raylan, like when he kicks down
Norbert?
the door. Is that where he kicks down the door and Raylan's like, I don't think that was necessary. But I liked him. He's kind of in and out. He only has really a very few like big moments, but and then for a lot of
that surprising moment towards the end where he's the one that's actually the voice of reason, right? Where he's like, I don't want to see an innocent person go down.
And he gave him a gun, actually.
Yeah. Because how is it like Raylan phrased it like, are you on the take or are you just an asshole?
Yeah.
It's good Raylan speak.
Yeah.
But the fact that, this is the guy you would expect to be.
I fully expected him to be the dirty cop.
Yeah. So it was a nice surprise when he wasn't. And then the cop that turned out to be, she was the one that was helping Raylan, invited him to stay in her home.
Yeah.
Was, taking care of, when we find it was a nice like surprise, to the show when oh my God, she's the, because when I'm watching it too, I'm also trying to forget the book. I'm not trying to compare it as I was watching it.
Was she the dirty cop in the book also?
I think so, yeah. It's been a while since I've read it, so some of the details are fuzzy, but I do believe she was.
I don't know because I haven't read the book, but I was listening to a podcast where they were talking and comparing, and no cops in the book are dirty.
Okay, well there you go. Because it's been a while since I've read it. But mainly I remember the stuff with the judge, because the judge was Elmore Leonard spends quite a bit of time on the judge at the beginning, so we get to know the judge, so that when the judge dies, it really is a bit of a shocker. Because
we might want to let the listeners know what we're talking about with the judge is when the judge he was like proclaiming, I have a book on all these people. I have everyone who's dirty in this town. It's gonna, it's keeping me in this wonderful house. And then when he's basically when Boyd kills him, it's like boom.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. Oh, sorry, Clement. Yeah,
Clement. Yes.
Yeah. Sorry.
We knew what you meant. But because he's got the dirt on everybody.
Yep. Exactly.
And
that's a major
really
plot point in the story too.
Yeah. And we only really see a small amount of what's in the book come to light in the series. Lord only knows what else, could be, is in that book. I mean, because they're using it to extort people for money, and then there's other people we know that are dirty cops, so we use it for that. Carolyn used it to get herself appointed a judge.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of there's some dirt. I mean, it's not just little stuff. It's some dirt. I mean, you don't just get a judgeship unless you got some good dirt on people.
Although
So-
I do like when they confront Maureen about her actions or whatever. They're like, "What do you got? Just a book? I can beat that." And you get a feeling like she will beat this because it's just a book's word against hers. Like what?
Mhm.
How do they like? Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's probably going to be some sort of money trail.
Oh, there has to be. It's not like
So
real
that
days.
that could be followed up, but then how many of those cops really want to follow it up? Like I mean, she is doing some good work in some cases. So and plus, you knock her down. How many cases does that affect? A
Mhm.
lot, right? Like
Yeah.
so that's a domino effect.
Not to mention that who, how do you know that the person that they put to investigate her isn't in the book too?
Exactly,
You know,
exactly.
there,
Wink,
yeah,
wink, nudge, nudge.
Well, they have the book now, so
not true.
they could tell. Mike, what about you? What's another character from this series that you found compelling?
Well, we haven't even talked about Carolyn or Sweetie.
We have not.
Two major forces in this.
Mhm.
Carolyn, you get introduced to her as like the nemesis at first, and you don't like her a lot because she's the defense attorney and who basically throws out Raylan's case in Detroit, and it's basic. And but then you start learning her backstory, and she has a full story, and they've fleshed her character out nicely, where you actually start really sympathizing for her. You care about her, and same way Raylan did. He cared about her quite a bit, and I loved in the first episode when Raylan's daughter bought her the drink at the bar, and it was the loudest, most obnoxious drink that they had the firework on it and everything, and it was just great. And I thought she worked really, really well with Raylan,
Mhm.
and the chemistry between the two of them was great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ingenue Ellis played Carolyn Wilder, the defense
Mhm.
attorney, and yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, Mike. That obviously she's like giving Raylan a hard time, and we see her as a foe in the beginning, kind of. But it's interesting how that scene plays out now. I mean, we're kind of laughing because he puts him in the trunk and everything like that. But once he's called to the carpet on it in court by a African American attorney, this is not 2015, right?
In
This
front
is
of an
not
African
when
American judge.
in front of an African American, and he did it to an African American, and
Mhm.
so that plays a lot different than it would have when we were watching,
Justified. Yeah.
Justified 10 years ago. Like this is like the landscape of what we feel about police brutality, et cetera, has changed a bit too. So I did find that sequence really, really interesting. Like we would have not seen a scene like that, during the original run of Justified, but now you can do that. And I was kind of worried that the whole show was going to be like, look what a dinosaur Raylan is, but instead Raylan's character was dialed back so much he didn't feel like a dinosaur. Instead, he felt like he was the voice of reason in front of all these other like corrupt people.
Oh, he even was talking to the one guy who had taken his mother hostage in the first episode.
Right.
And everything. And he had actually basically talked the guy out, out of the basement. And then the other detective, like literally as he was opening the door, slammed the door back into his face, and he went flying down the stairs. And I was like, that's what you would have expected Raylan to do in the old series.
Mhm.
Yeah, he wouldn't have cared.
No.
Yeah. And we mentioned Keith David earlier, but you can never go wrong putting actors like Keith David or Vondie Curtis Hall in stuff like this.
Right.
These are guys that can play these darker kind of serious, edgy types of characters, and I thought Vondie Curtis Hall was really good here.
Absolutely. Sweetie was probably my favorite character in the whole series outside of
sad to see him killed.
Absolutely. But he went down like a champ, man.
Yeah,
he did.
And if his partner hadn't taken the gun, things might have been a little bit differently from the jukebox there.
Yeah.
But
and a nice counterpoint to Clement Sweetie's backstory, he was actually a musician.
He
Oh, a
was
damn
actually a
good
musician,
jazz.
and a damn
Yeah.
good one too.
Yeah.
Great
So-
bass player. Yeah.
So
He actually
yes,
played with Coltrane, which is awesome.
absolutely. Yeah. Great stories there. Even the flashback featuring him was compelling. I was like, if they were going to tell a whole episode devoted to his flashback, it would have worked for me because he was so great to watch. All right. So can't leave without talking about the last 10 minutes. So the last 10 minutes of this, we return back to Harlan County. Well, before that, we do get Raylan retiring.
Yes.
Raylan officially retires. He shoots Clement Mansell because Clement's reaching for a tape.
He
and
thinks
much
it's a
like
gun.
and thinks it's a gun.
He
Well,
knows he has a
yes,
gun on him. So
he does. But just like Cruz told him, it was time to cut out because he had shot a guy that was reaching for a lighter. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And he found he didn't care afterwards that he killed him for reaching for not a gun. We get the feeling that Raylan doesn't care either. So Raylan decides to return back to Miami, despite the fact that Carolyn's like, you don't have to go, and he's like, I get that a lot. She's like, damn it, Raylan, I get that a lot. And so he returns and then turns in his badge because he realizes that he's shooting people and he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So just when he thinks he's out, we go back to Harlan County and we visit with Boyd Crowder, who is up to his his old tricks, just biding his time, doing sermons, preaching sermons to the masses in jail, going around with a little cough, hoping someone notices until finally he gets busted out, and he is going to make his way to Mexico. Raylan gets the head alert that Boyd is released. Boyd has escaped.
Yeah, he wasn't released. He escaped.
Yeah.
We do not know if Raylan picks up that phone. But we do have the makings of another Justified series, probably one that everybody wants to see rather than the one that we just saw.
And I'm fairly certain. I'm fairly certain when Raylan sees that the Kentucky office is calling him, he knows.
He knows exactly what it is.
There's no other reason
Kentucky,
Lexington would call him.
Nope.
Yes, I thought the ending was fantastic. I hope we get to see more. We did get 4 characters from the original series in the final episode. In addition to Boyd, Natalie Zia reprises her role as Winona.
Yep.
Very briefly, Willa's mom. We also get Raylan's Miami boss, Matt Craven's the actor. I forget the character's name. And then his partner, who was in a couple episodes of the old one.
Right.
Are both there. So it was cool seeing those guys and Winona again. So
he was still very fed up with Raylan. It's like
yeah. It's like Raylan seems to have that effect on like all of his
everyone.
Yeah, all of his chiefs. Yeah.
Everyone. Like he said, he gets that a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So I do feel like in some ways it was, and well, in most ways, fan service wise, it was great to see Walton Goggins as Boyd Crowder again. That was wonderful. It did kind of make me go, well, damn, this is a show I want to see. Like that, this last 10 minutes, I wish was the first 10 minutes of the series. Like, hopefully there's no plans to do another one, but hopefully the people at FX and everybody like gets on board because everybody's going to say we want it now. Now knowing that, like I said, Justified ended on a satisfying way. Do you run the risk of seeing Boyd and Raylan go at it one more time?
I'd watch it.
Do you want to see another series, or do you want to see just a TV movie or something.
I kind of like the idea of like this. It doesn't have to be 20 some or 13. It eight episodes. Give
Mhm.
me 8 good episodes, and it doesn't even have to be next year. I think we've reached this wonderful model in this era where we don't have to do 22 episodes, come back next year, do 22 more, et cetera, et cetera. We can put a few years between them if we need to.
Yeah.
And if that's what it takes to do it, I would love to see, just seeing, those two actors and those two characters together again. I think it would be fun. But
Okay.
I think a movie we would lose those character moments that I want if we did it in a movie, because you'd have to really get the action going. And
Right.
you wouldn't. Yeah, I love part of what I loved about the series was those character moments where we'd go whole seasons where Raylan and Boyd would only see each other once or twice in the whole season.
Mhm.
But those moments, my God, were magic. And so, yeah, so if we were going to do it again, hopefully it would be a good story. But I would love to. Yeah, I'd be down for that.
Mike?
I wish we would have not gotten that scene. I really think it took away from the other story, in all truth. Because I wanted to see now what happens. And it's like basically seeing, him getting out of prison, well, escaping from prison. And it was interesting because you knew something was going to happen when they showed the, Kentucky prison. It's like, oh, geez.
As soon as they showed the thing that said Harlan County, you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And it was just like, oh, we know something's coming. And I think partly that actually made
we're
me,
not going to go back and look at Dewey Crow.
Saw for the last hour, though,
Yeah.
completely, because I was so focused on that final. And
Plus, everything that they had just led up to, this was supposed to be the breaking point of Raylan leaving.
Yeah.
They just outdid it. They just undid it by saying like, oh, well, now Boyd's free. So guess what? He's going to go back to
exactly. He's
doing what he does.
He's going to give up on his daughter. He's going to, everything he's trying to build towards is out the window now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I kind of, everything he built throughout this 8 episodes out the window completely and everything, because Boyd's out and everything.
Yeah, and I watched a little interview with the showrunners, and they did say that it was kind of just they did it for fun.
Yes,
and
it was fan service.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it very much was fan service, and that it was kind of a last minute idea, and they only did it like they filmed all the Boyd stuff in like one day. They had Walton for one day.
Right.
There was a cool bit,
kind of busy,
right? Because they filmed that scene on the bridge. And the bridge turned out to be a happy accident because where they were going to film it, they couldn't get the permits where they had filmed. They couldn't get in where they had filmed Justified.
Right.
And so they went back to where they filmed the pilot with that bridge. They were tearing down that bridge like the next day or the day after.
Oh, wow.
So they were the last thing to film on that bridge because the bridge was not drivable. It had been closed down a while.
Mm-hmm.
And so they allowed them to come in and use that to shoot on that bridge. And because that bridge is so, if you've seen the original show, that bridge is so important in that first episode,
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so seeing that was, but yeah, all fan service. We could have none of that had to be there, and it still would have been okay, an okay show. So yeah, it was totally like, oh yeah, we know what you guys want here, just like with Picard giving us the Enterprise D. We know what you want to see. Here it is.
Yeah.
And, and so, yeah, so it was fun. Now, before we move on, I did want to mention something too. We talked about killing Clement, the shootout with Clement. I also, in my rewatch of this, I didn't catch it the first time, but except for the fact that they're standing, the layout and the way it is shot, the shootout where Raylan shoots Clement is the exact same way as how Raylan shot Tommy Bucks in the opening 5 minutes of the pilot.
Yeah. Yes. I did see. I mean, I did see something about that flashback. Yeah. Like that was very reminiscent. Yeah. And in both cases, they're justified. So yes, we can, it justifies the title, literally. As far as more from Raylan and Boyd, I will say that I had heard or read that the original idea for shooting this came from Dave and Michael, it's the showrunners, but also Timothy had talked to Quentin Tarantino, who's very interested in doing Justified with Raylan Givens. So I would not be opposed at all to a Tarantino TV movie with Raylan and Boyd. Cut out all other supporting characters. You don't need them. Like, I don't want to, like, no offense, Bobby, but I don't need to see 8 episodes of other characters. Like, those are the only 2 I care about.
You just want to see them sitting in a booth together somewhere.
Just well, yes, you could literally have them 2 like trapped on an elevator for 2 hours, and it would be captivating television.
Yeah.
But you add Tarantino into that mix, and I think it would make for an amazing. Like, that's the only way to me to I'm going to use the term again, justify like adding more to this, because yes, as Mike pointed out, we already knew we had a satisfying conclusion to this. Like, so now it's left wide open. So if you're going to do something spectacular with it, but yet not too over the top, although Tarantino can go that way. But I think Tarantino's like, if he's interested, I might make that happen, because I would watch that so much. I would watch that over and over again in my head. So let's make that happen. I would like to see that. So anyway, we don't know if there's going to be more Justified, but if there is, we are going to discuss it because we love Justified so much. The writing, the direction. I mean, we didn't get a chance to talk about half the stuff this show was professionally made for sure. It might have been shot in Chicago, but they did a damn good job of making it look like Detroit, making it look dirty, making it look, as corrupt as the officials, and making it look as different from Harlan County.
Yes.
As anything, as the story was, as the characters were. I mean, I thought that was a really nice, interesting choice too, to do that, and music wise, different as well. So, excellent. So it's been great talking about this series with you guys, and hopefully there'll be more. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to close out the show.
Okay, YouTube folks, you guys are up now. And this is the fun part, because, a lot of times we talk about the topic we're going to be that we're talking about for the main. And what do you guys think, both of you guys, what do you think Raylan went through in the 10 years since we've seen him last and everything?
I don't think he's been back to Harlan, except for what was in the final episode where he goes back and tells Boyd that Ava is dead. I don't think, because there's that scene where Willa is asking about Harlan. She wants, you know what? We could take a little detour. So she's obviously never, so she's obviously never been there, because I can't imagine her mom or dad wanting to go back.
No, I don't think they want anything to do with Kentucky ever again.
Yeah. I think, that both of them know, bad stuff happened there.
Yeah.
But I think having the child has mellowed him a little. Obviously, he's not quite as quick on the trigger. Now his job could have done some of that as well, but I certainly think having a daughter has kind of mellowed him a little, or he's trying to like mellow himself as an example, because she is, punching people and breaking their noses.
Well, she even admitted to him that she did it to get his attention.
Right.
And everything, So is he, because he's that's the thing with Raylan. He is a workaholic, and you saw that during the original series. And, he's hyper focused when he's on a case or when he's working. You saw it even in this series and everything. That's why he sent his daughter away. And
because she gives that bit when they're in the diner about talking about how I just wanted to spend time with my dad, or I just wanted to have a meal with my dad. So you get that they don't do that a lot.
No, exactly. Exactly. And so that's what I found real interesting. So it's like, so I don't think he's been the most attentive dad during this time.
Not just that, but it's been, like we say, give or take 10 years, right? He's still a deputy U.S. Marshal going on runs.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, he hasn't been promoted at all. He still continues to be his own worst enemy. He may, in psychologically, he may not be as quick to the trigger, but as we saw in the, when he cut down Clement, he's physically quick to the trigger. I mean, he's still like the fastest gun in the West, right? So I think it's been just more of the same, where he's just been doing his thing, not getting, like, pissing people off, being his own worst enemy, probably sleeping with the wrong people. And he doesn't know his daughter very well. And the example that he's been showing her is that it's okay to punch people. So obviously he's like, in his absence, he's still making an impact on her in a bad way. So I think he's confronted with that here. So yeah, I think it's just, he's just been spinning around. And that's why when Winona says, you couldn't give up this job for me, what, I can't believe you finally gave it up. And he says, I can't believe I didn't give it up sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe I didn't understand. I didn't realize what I was doing for the last decade was just spinning my wheels and not getting anywhere. And so at the end, when he is offered, potential to be a chief, he's like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a quick question for you guys. So, which of Timothy's previous characters is he going to revisit as a 10-year later mark? Because we've already done this with Deadwood. Now we've done this with Justified. Who do we want to? Who's going to be next?
Well, and unfortunately, I must admit that I have not been watching a lot of his other performances of late. So I can't say that, because I think he was, I don't know. I don't know what else he's really done.
I want to see him return to the Star Wars universe.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Space
a good
Raylan.
answer. Thank you.
Space Raylan.
Yep.
Space Raylan. Yes. Cobb Vance. Always welcome to see Cobb Vance. Yes, please. I will second that. Cobb Vance. But I don't want it to take 10 years.
No. Well, till we get our next episode, it might be 10 years with this damn writer's strike. And
yeah, that's true. That's true. But I guess that means we'd have to go back to Tatooine, which I was kind of hoping that we were done with. But because as cool as Cobb Vanth is, I don't think he's the kind of guy who's going to leave Tatooine. But maybe, who knows? Whatever. But
Tatooine is like the center of the galaxy.
For some reason, when returning to that damn sand planet.
But I haven't seen, I heard he was really good in Santa Clarita Diet. I heard he was really good in Daisy Jones and the Six. I heard he was really good in Full Circle. So I know he's capable of great stuff. I just haven't seen anything he's done lately. Other than
he was also great in The Good Place too, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
Well, he played himself, so
yeah, exactly.
I did try to watch. It just wasn't for me. There's a show on Max that he's in with Claire Danes and CCH Pounder. It's like a crime thriller, and it wasn't quite my thing, but he's good in it.
Isn't that the one, Full Circle?
Is that what it was? I couldn't remember the title.
Yeah,
that may be.
I think that's
That's how much it didn't quite resonate with me. But
yeah,
some of our YouTube listeners are like,
sorry,
yelling back at the screen right now. He was in this. Ah!
Yeah, so, but he's done some good movies. I've enjoyed some of his movie performances.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think he's pretty great in whatever he does.
Yeah.
and everything. Every time I see him, I fully expect him to have a cowboy hat on, you know?
Well, it's so weird too, with certainly with this series being in the limelight here of late, and seeing all these interviews, finding out roles that he almost had. Like he was almost Iron Man. He was
I remember
he
that.
was almost Kirk, in the J.J. Abrams movie. It's like you kind of wonder what would that have done? And
That would have been interesting. That one would have been interesting to see. But it's interesting too. But it was fun to, the guy who played, his nemesis, Clement, Boyd Holbrook, has been in a ton of stuff and everything.
Most recently in Indiana Jones movie.
Yep.
That's right.
That's right. He was one of the baddies. But he's also played good guys and stuff too. So
he was really good. I did really like him. I don't, outside of Dial of Destiny, I don't think I'd really seen him in much. I know he was in Logan, but I don't remember him in that. And but here he made an impression on me.
Dude, yeah, he was the head of the Reavers.
He was the Corinthian.
Yeah, I was about to say he was Corinthian.
Yeah,
of course.
Right. Yeah. And he was amazing as the Corinthian.
Actually, you're right. He was. I mean, very not dissimilar from playing Clement.
No, actually, he wasn't.
I mean, Clement Mansell could have gone to that serial killers convention and been right at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he's really good in these kind of roles, and so yes. I've seen him in a few things. He's really good. I wish he would wear pants more often, but he's really good.
Oh yeah, it's like Judy looked at me and said, "You are never getting tidy whities. You are so not getting tidy whities, dude." I know too much information, but it's okay. But
you're among friends.
I know. But yeah, as soon as I saw him, I looked at it and Judy as it's the Corinthian. So it was awesome.
Yeah.
No,
he's good. I fully expect to continue to see good things from him. He's really good.
Mm-hmm. Well, most of the actors in this were really well done.
They always do a really good job at casting, and that's because when they write a character, it's not just a one note thing. I mean, people want to work. Like Luis Guzman was like, when they called him, they're like, "Dad, do you want to be in this?" He's like, "Sure, yes, absolutely, I'll work for you guys because you guys do good work."
My first thought was like, "Wait a minute, we're 5 minutes from the end. What's Luis Guzman doing?" Because you don't.
I mean, it was great because it's great because it was kind of like they said they cast him not only as a joke, or as an in joke because he was in the out of sight, but also because that he would kind of distract you as to thinking, okay, he's going to be the one to get Boyd out because I recognize that guy. Like that's the guy I'm going to be focused on. And so it's a little like nice twist there. And I it's that kind of smart filmmaking, TV making, whatever you want to call it, that these guys bring to it that attracts good quality people.
No, can't disagree with that. Not at all. But yeah, I think it's pretty awesome. And I think it was neat to see, like we said earlier in the show, it was great to see an old friend come back. And then at the end, we got to see another old friend come back. So I would have actually liked, I was thinking about it. I almost wish they ended it. And then if they decided to do a second season, that's how it started and everything instead of
I think they just, because they didn't know if they would get to do more, they were just like, let's just do it.
It would have been, if they went to Walton and he said yes because he was interested, and they showed him they wrote some pages for him, and this is when they were shooting. I think when they were working on the pilot for this season, and then he said, "Yeah, count me in." And of course, they had to work with his schedule and everything. And I think he and Timothy's schedules are so bonkers too. To get them both involved with another series might be kind of difficult, but to have a one movie boom done thing might be more doable for them. But I do wonder if, like, instead of what we got with showing Boyd get out, if all we got at the end was Raylan on the boat and his his phone goes off and
Mhm.
it's Harlan County. It's like, it's Kentucky, and then you'd be like, ooh,
Uh-oh.
like, yeah. Like, we know what that means. Like, you wouldn't even had to shoot the stuff with Walton as Boyd, you could have just shown that, and that would have been like enough to be like, ooh.
A friend of mine who also watched it we were talking about it, and he said, he at first thought it would have been kind of cool if that was the opening scene of the series. And then you had the specter of Boyd throughout the whole series. And
I would have been disappointed if they didn't go back to that at some point.
Yeah,
right.
that would have been
That would have been too big of a tease, I think.
That would have been a huge cloud overhead, and everybody would have been staring at the cloud instead of what was on the ground. Like, nobody would care at all about what was going on in Detroit.
It's very much like discussions Mike and I keep having every week, where he's like, "Why wasn't Grand Admiral Thrawn in this episode of Ahsoka?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's another one we're going to talk about. But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's still to come, folks. we're
well, as Bobby learned, as we all learned when we saw Jaws, sometimes it's better if you don't show the shark.
Mm-hmm.
That's very, very true. Very true. Okay, folks, that's going to wrap this segment up. Thank you for listening to us ramble. It's always fun to do that. And that's going to wrap up another episode of the Air Station One podcast. Thanks everybody for joining us. Mr. Nash, it's always a pleasure, my friend.
Oh, so good. It's been so long since it's been just the three of us. This is pretty cool.
I know. It's almost like the good old days.
It's like, we didn't dig coal together, but we made podcasts together. So it's,
exactly. And we still
our hands are dirtier.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, we've run away from many disasters.
There's less money in podcasting than digging coal.
Absolutely.
Amen, brother. Amen on that one. So I see, you're all the time, you're out on the road with your dad.
Yeah.
You don't even have time to write anymore.
Well, it's tough. There's a lot of sleepless nights. We do get out and I've been doing a lot of cons this year. Back on the con circuit. I just wrapped up 5 or 6 weeks in a row somewhere, wrapping that up with DragonCon, and then the end of the month we start over. I got a couple, 4 or 5 throughout the end of September into October into November. So
gotcha. What do you got coming up?
On the 24th of this month, I have a library show in Ackworth, Georgia.
Okay.
On the 30th of September, I will be in Augusta at CanaCon with several friends of the show, Ricky and Bambi and Randy Bishop, and so we'll be having a good time up there in Augusta. And then October, there's several things. Monsterama's in October. I'm doing Halloween Comic Fest down in Tifton. So yeah, lots. And then Huntsville. I'm in Huntsville in November. So
very nice.
And then there's some other library shows in there that I just don't remember the dates off the top of my head.
Very nice.
Yes,
very
that's how bad it is. I can't remember it anymore. I have to keep a calendar and so. But now between doing that and the writing and the writing and
more
too bad I can't do the two. I can't write while I ride.
Yeah,
that would be awesome, but I can't do that.
Soon you'll be able to just dictate into a little microphone, and it'll type it onto the computer as you're.
Well, it's funny. The phone.
They have that technology. Yeah, they have that technology now.
I sometimes, for a while there, I'd wake up in the middle of the night with something, and I would turn on talk to text, and I would leave myself a note, and then I would get up the next morning and go, "What the hell does that mean?" Because talk to text does not understand the Southern accent or the mumbling when you're half asleep, and so there's a lot of deciphering. It's like deciphering code. It's like, so yeah.
That is awesome.
I need to just plug the chip into my brain and just let it,
So how can people find you in all the places you're going to be?
BobbyNash.com has everything. I'm also on author Bobby Nash on Facebook, Bobby Nash Writes on Instagram, at Bobby Nash on Twitter, X, whatever it's called. I'm also on Threads, Bobby Nash Writes on Threads. I've got Blue Sky. I think that's all of them.
This man knows how to promote himself.
There's a lot of them out there. So yeah.
And Mr. Mike, we've made it through another one, my friend.
We did, and as always, it's my pleasure. How did we get through it without shooting somebody?
I don't know. Hold on, it's early still.
You still got a few minutes, yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, you never know. JD might make a break for it out of the airlock before this episode ends.
That's a no-brainer. That is a no-brainer right there.
He can try.
Oh God, we wanted to the other day when he was on the show.
He could try, but he just died being tired.
Mm-hmm. Anything you want to shout out about Sarah?
I do. As Bobby mentioned, DragonCon 2023 is over, but we're still feeling it. But it lives on in virtualness. We did some virtual panels for the Brittracks. Mike and I. One is an Earth Station One Presents panel. We did the topic was James Bond themes, the songs that surpassed the movies. We were joined by Alan J. Porter and Matthew Kressel. And then we also, on our Earth Station Who podcast crew, we're joined by the folks from the Traveling TARDIS, Melanie and Christian, and it was Mary, of course, who co-hosts the Earth Station Who with us as well. There we talked about Doctor Who spinoffs, past and future. They are both available for your viewing pleasure over on YouTube. So if you're watching this, just switch over to if you want more of us, switch over to the Brittracks and you'll find more where that came from. If you're listening to us, just go to YouTube.
Finish watching.
We'll have the links in the show notes, but those were a lot of fun to participate in, and yes, they are still there for you to watch, and I believe there's no expiration date on those. I think you can watch them. You don't have to have DC TV or anything like that. Just go to YouTube and you can watch them for free.
Yeah, and speaking of DragonCon, one of the things Mike and I did discuss a lot was Dragon Tales.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah, I'm assuming I know you've talked about it on the show before, but
I have
many times.
Yeah, so I know that's.
Talk about it again. Go for
it. No, it's coming soon. There'll be the next episode. Will probably have some more detailed information on how you can get it.
Excellent. My shout out real quick. Today is 9/11, and 22 years already, folks. It's pretty crazy. Everyone of our generation knows where we were that day, at that moment. It's hearing my grandparents when they were young saying about where they were when Pearl Harbor got bombed or JFK was assassinated. And there's moments in your lives where you realize this is history, this is not a good thing. And when those airplanes hit the World Trade Center, I was out in Seattle and I was sleeping still. And I had a friend of mine from Australia call me and say, Mike, are you watching TV? Your World Trade Centers just got bombed. And I said, no, they didn't. That was years ago that terrorist tried to blow it up with a truck bomb. And he said, no. It was, somebody just flew an airplane into it. And the world changed then, folks. Nothing is the same. It was almost like we lost an innocence to our society. And, we lost a lot of great people. We lost some very heroic people. We lost some very innocent people who went to work, just going to their offices, people who were going on an airplane flight, not thinking about it. It was just, horrific. And, it's unimaginable. I could not, when I went down to the wreckage a couple months later, it was still smoking. The ground was still smoking there. They had, because the fires underground, they didn't put out for quite some time. And it was just amazing. Some things that brought people together now has pushed people apart. And that's the sad thing about it. And, people are like, oh, we got to get on with life. People, don't even want to recognize this. It's something that happened, and it's something that needs to not be forgotten. It needs to be remembered of the people who we were, the people that we lost, and, everything that caused it and led to it. Let's not have it happen again. Let's stay together. Let's hug your loved ones, because you never know. It could be taken away just like that. And that's the important thing to remember about 9/11. And, it's just craziness. It really, really is. And I miss some of the things that have changed since then. And hopefully someday maybe they'll come back. I don't see it happening in my lifetime. And it's interesting, someone like my son, who was 3 at the time, that's ancient history to them already. It's something they read about in history books and everything. But, it's not, to me, it feels like yesterday. And it doesn't feel like it's 22 years. And, I'm sure people are like going, okay, Mike, this is supposed to be a lighthearted show and everything. But, we have to remember. And that's all you have to say.
Yeah, there are adults who weren't born then.
I know people I work with.
It's they don't understand a time before that was a thing. So, yeah.
No, exactly. And when I told my son, there was a time when you used to come to the gate to see me get off the airplane when I used to go on trips and stuff. And he's like, what? We weren't at the top of security or whatever? And it's like, no, you actually used to be able to go to the gate. You used to have, people, there was just so much. You used to have to not take your shoes off to get on the airplane or a belt. And it's just crazy. And people's attitudes towards each other has changed a lot. And that kind of sucks. But on to better, just bigger and better stuff, folks. And hopefully we can learn from it and learn from everyday life. And just remember, have fun, enjoy life. And you know what? Smile at your friends. Be grateful that you have your friends here to be able to spend time and talk about Justified. And it was a blast. So, you know what? As always, thanks for listening to the Earth Station One podcast. Always remember, we couldn't do this without you guys, as we like to always say. Please help support the podcast by checking out our Tee-Public store and get some really cool ESO Network swag. You can always get that at the top of the ESO Network webpage, or go to the top of the Earth Station One webpage. Also, of course, we have a link in our show notes. And, just look up Earth Station One or ESO Network in Tee-Public. It's pretty cool stuff. Also, remember, if you want to listen to the show before the rest of the world, please check out our Patreon. You could do it for as little as $1 a month. You too can help support the Earth Station One podcast and the ESO Network. All you have to do is go to patreon.com/ESO Network. Remember now, Earth Station One is available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we are finally up on Pandora, folks. That is right. We are on Pandora. And, folks who are listening to us on Stitcher, please listen to us elsewhere, because, Stitcher's gone. There is no more Stitcher anymore. So Stitcher Radio is a thing of the past. So we are on Sirius XM now. We are on Pandora. And of course, YouTube, where you can look at all these shiny faces and get to see all the cool stuff that's behind me, behind Mike. I think we might do a contest someday that, we might try to name 10 things that are behind Mike Gordon, type thing.
Huh.
I think that would be awesome. You could win an
It could help me find some stuff.
Yeah. It would be going like, Mike, you have that behind you? I do. Wow, I didn't.
That's where that is.
Be like the Where's Waldo of ESO, just hide something each week.
Exactly. So it's actually pretty cool. So definitely check that out. If you like the show, please like and subscribe, and wherever you're listening to it. And if you're on YouTube, click on that little thing on the top, give it a thumbs up, and, you can then find out when we come to you now once a week. And, we're getting some good feedback there. Hopefully get some listeners, and we're getting new subscribers all the time. So why not join in with the rest of them? If you want to write us, please write us feedback@earthstation1.com. We definitely would love to hear from you guys. All right. That is going to wrap up the show for tonight. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, on behalf of myself, Mike Faber, Mr. Bobby Nash, and the amazing Mr. Mike Gordon, thank you guys so much, as always. Okay, now, folks, Doc, Mike has a gun. Peace. We're out. And we're done.
You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.